People think of South Korea today as an open, free, and democratic country and think that's why the U.S. is allied with it. But has that always been the case in the long history of our relationship?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, even under Sigmund Rhee, it was a, fascist police state then, and people were, anybody on the left was hunted down and put in prison and executed. And Park Chung-hee, who took over a military coup in 1961 and ruled, he was a general, and he ruled until 1979 when he was assassinated for 18 years. That was one of the world's worst surveillance and torture states. I mean, it's terrible in terms of human rights and political rights. It was just an abomination. And the U.S. always knew this, and Park was just a close military ally. He had a very powerful military.
Park even sent South Korean troops to fight alongside American soldiers in Vietnam. He was assassinated in 1979 and replaced with General Chun Doo-hwan.
Nancy and I, Mr. President, are pleased to welcome you and Madam Chun to the White House. And you are one of our first guests here. We haven't lived here very long. And in looking about, I can't help but contrast the peaceful and rather elegant setting with a meeting that took place in your country 30 years ago in a building in your capital in Seoul that was badly damaged by the war. It was just after the landing at Incheon, and General Douglas MacArthur turned the command of the city over to President Rhee and the civilian authorities of the Republic of Korea. And General MacArthur spoke then of the special friendship that exists between our two countries and of our mutual commitment to democratic principles and individual liberty and personal dignity.
Lim Young-taek had a personal encounter with what Presidents Chun and Reagan must have considered individual liberty. The year Reagan welcomed Chun to the White House, Mr. Lim's family relocated to the southern industrial hub of Busan. Like many curious 12-year-olds might do, as his parents moved in luggage, he wandered off to explore his new neighborhood.
I got lost, so I asked the police, and they said, stay here for a while. But then they took me to Brothers' Home.
Brothers' Home was an internment camp run by the South Korean government in the 70s and 80s. According to AP, the drunks, the unlucky, but mostly children and the disabled were plucked off the street and disappeared into these camps. At least 4,000 were kept at Brothers' Home. By 1986, up to 16,000 were kept in 36 similar facilities across the country. You were just a child. That sounds like a nightmare.
When I was captured, I was stuck in a truck, in darkness. I thought I died.
Once you were inside, what did you experience and witness?
Torture happened all the time. Sometimes they beat us, group by group. Some people died there. I witnessed some people's death. Also, I was a victim of sexual abuse. Torture every day, and sexual abuse. They beat us group by group with shovels. There are many different styles of beating. When I joined the army, I learned some of these techniques. Similar things were happening every day in Brothers' Home. You know, around 10 or 11 in the nighttime, some of the senior members there would drop by. I was young, and they raped me.
What kind of feelings did you go through while you were inside, and did you think you would come out alive?
We couldn't have a social life, but we had the will to survive. So torture, labor, and beating doesn't make any sense to us. We just had a will to survive. We just endured everything, even torture. All of us were patient, suffering from nightmares, and we still cannot turn off the light in the nighttime, even though 40 years have passed.
In 1987, Brothers' Home was shut down after escapees alerted the press of its existence.
When I was in the camp, I didn't know what happened to my parents. But when I came out in 1987, I came to meet my father's friend. He told me my father died. My mother had moved on with a new life.
And so Mr. Lim moved on with his, eventually moving to Seoul to start over. He's one of the lucky ones who survived. The Korean government officially recognizes 513 deaths at Brothers' home, though the real number is likely much higher. To this day, no one has been held accountable for the kidnappings, the torture, the forced labor, or the deaths.
We're not vagrants. We were just ordinary common people. I just got lost, that's all. We want the government to express a sincere apology and give us recognition. We want an investigation to find the truth. Today, when I see police, my heart goes pitter-patter. I cannot stand it. I am a strong opponent of the police, and without drinking, I cannot go to sleep.
Mr. Lim is just one victim of the South Korean military dictatorship. As president, Chun began an effort to re-educate the population. The New York Times reported in 1981, army camps for, quote, hooligans were first opened in the summer last year, after military leaders headed by General Chun Do-hwan took power. Between August 1980 and January 1981, a total of 57,561 people were warned or re-educated, according to the Korea Herald, an English-language newspaper in Seoul. The paper said that 38,259 of these underwent, quote, correctional programs in military camps.
You have a saying in your country that after the rain, the earth hardens. Well, the miracle of modern Korea is well known in the world.
And while 2017's modern Korea has made democratic strides, remnants of the colonial period and military dictatorship still stain the legal system. Can you talk about the national security laws which exist here?
National security law is a draconian law that basically cracked down human rights defenders and silenced human rights defenders in the country. The main reason, when you see the origin of this national security law, not even in Korea, but also in Malaysia and some other Asian countries, it's a kind of residue of colonization. So there was a law during the Japanese colonization related to the national security to crack down those Korean people who want to support for the independence of the Korea. And now when we have the new government set up, then the government changed the name into the national security law. And that law has been used to, as I mentioned, silence human rights defenders, because it's very easy to crack down human rights defenders when they say that, oh, you're harm to national security. Especially Article 7 is the one talking about the benefiting enemy, and enemy in this sense is North Korea. So if I make some comment, looks like supporting North Korea or even against the current government, it can be easily turned into like, okay, you're benefiting the enemy, so you're violating the Article 7 of the National Security Act. That is why for a very long time, civil society has been calling for the repeal of the National Security Act, as well as the UN and the international society has been called for the amendment and repeal of the National Security Law.
The New York Times reports in 2010, 151 people were interrogated on suspicion of violating the national security law, up from 39 in 2007. The number of people prosecuted for pro-North Korean online activities increased to 82 in 2010, from 5 in 2008. The number of domestic websites shut down for pro-North Korean content rose to 178, from 18 in 2009. During the first 10 months of 2011, the police deleted 67,300 web posts they believed threatened national security by, quote, praising North Korea and denouncing the U.S. and the government, a sharp rise from 14,430 posts in 2009.